Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2010 Volkswagen Tiguan, and it's here for an intermittent no start condition. Customer thought it would be an alternator problem. He said on 2 occasions after a short hot soak it wouldn't start. I've had it running now for about a half an hour, and I've tried it several dozen times, and it started every time. Now, I have checked the charging system voltage and it's good. Let's have a look at that. He said it went with a boost. I asked him how he got it started, and he said he boosted it with another vehicle and it started. Now, it could just be coincidental. Let's have a look at the diode ripple from the alternator. I did this already before and it looks reasonable. That's not uncommon to be that erratic, but that definitely doesn't have a bad diode in the alternator. So I did a network code scan. Now have a look at that. So here's the results of a network code scan from DCDS. There's a code in the ABS, in the central electronic system, parking brake system, and the radio. Everything you see in red there. Tire pressure warning in the ABS, minor detail. What's in the central electronic headlight bulb, I think it was. Lamp for low beam left, yeah. I put a headlight in it a few months ago. So that's not related. Go down here, parking brake, it has function limitation due to under voltage. Now that occurred at 133,414 kilometers, and he has 136,340, so roughly 2,000 kilometers ago. Well, this no crank condition happened a couple of days ago on 2 different occasions, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. And implausibility signal from the parking brake switch. I did put a parking brake switch on this thing a few months ago as well. And in the radio, a problem with the speaker. So what I don't see is low voltage codes in the ECM and the central gateway, which we would definitely have if the battery had gone dead. So I'm starting to lean towards an intermittent failing starter, but I can't catch it, or I haven't been able to catch it in the act. I'm going to discuss the repairs with the customer, and we'll likely put a starter on this to be proactive, because again, if there was a charging system concern and a battery concern, there should be low voltage codes in multiple controllers, in my opinion. So once you take the air induction components out, the air filter housing, you can get at the connector to the S terminal there. So I've got a jumper harness, T-harness in there, and a test light connected to it, so I can repeatedly try it. Hopefully we'll catch it in the act. I also needed to establish what type of starter it had on it, so operating the ignition switch. Well, we could either let him drive it like that for a few days and see if it acts up with a test light on it. I'm going to discuss it with him. So apparently there are 2 different starters. There's a Bosch and a Vallejo. The Bosch one has the through bolts internally in the case, and the Vallejo one has them externally. You can barely see it down there, but the bolt is on the outside of the case. You can see it right in the center of the screen there, to the right hand side of the starter motor. So this is the Vallejo starter, and I still haven't talked to the customer. So here's the plan. A starter is at least a week away, so we're going to give it back to the customer, and I've wired up this test light, and I'm going to leave it out here beside the fender so that every time he starts the vehicle, that light's going to come on, provided of course the starter control circuit is working. If in fact it does act up and that light is on and it doesn't crank, then we know 100% for sure that it needs a starter. The battery cables and connections are clean and tight. If that light does not light when it's attempting to crank, then there's a problem with the control circuit. I told him to move the shifter from park to neutral and back to park and try it in neutral and park. But I think the gear shift indicator, if it was mispositioned, it would set a fault code, I would think, but who knows. So that's where we're at. We'll see what happens. So over a month ago, I had this Tiguan here for an intermittent no crank condition. I couldn't duplicate the condition, but I did order a starter, and it was towed in last night for no crank. But I have wired up a test light, as you can see by the fender here, to the control side of the starter at the actual starter. So see if it'll start this morning. And you can hear the starter solenoid clicking. So there's power being sent to it, so it definitely needs a starter. I'm going to try tapping on it. So we're about to change the starter. I couldn't get it to start by tapping on the starter, so I had to push it in. So remove the air induction components, the upper air cleaner cover and the battery cover, the lower air cleaner cover. There's one bolt here, and it's just pushed in and clipped into this hose. There's the starter down there. You can see it. It's a bit of a challenge to get to, but I'm going to disconnect the battery cable and proceed. Or you can see my temporary test light wired in and connected to the ground, and I got a terminal, a T-wire harness teed in, as you can see, male and female spade terminals. That was really handy. We put that back in my test equipment drawer. That was the control wire it was tied into. So I removed the ground cable nut off the body and took the body ground and the engine ground off. We're going to clean that. I just moved them off the way so I can get in there with a wrench. 13 mil nut. 13 pin nut holds the battery cable onto the positive stud of the starter. Control wire is already disconnected. Now there's this little heat shield here, or some kind of little shield there. So we'll get those nuts off. So that bracket holds a wiring harness beside the starter, and I think it goes on both the top and bottom bolt. I got it off the top bolt and I got the top bolt out from here, but the bottom bolt on the starter I'm going to have to try and access from underneath because I can't see it here. So I was right, that bracket bolts to the other starter retaining bolt. You can see it up there barely. You can get it with a 6-inch extension and a 13 mil to get the bracket off, and then it's 18 mil semi-deep to get the stud out. So there's the starter out. Sits in there like this, so you're going to have to turn it clockwise a little bit to get it to clear a bolt on the transmission. Pull it back and then tilt it up this way to get it out. It actually isn't too bad to get out. And we're going to inspect the flywheel teeth. Comes out, like I said, this way. Put it in from the back side down. So let's compare the new starter. Well, as I mentioned, there are two different starters. There's a Vallejo starter with the bolts external on the case, and the Bosch starter with the bolts internal in the case. This one's a little bit bigger diameter, but the bolt holes are the same, and my research suggests that they both will fit the actual car. I could not source this particular starter, only this one, so it looks the same mounting wise, offset, depth, connections up here is the same. So we're going to put it in there and see how it works. The flywheel teeth are okay. So there's the starter installed. The starter mounting bolts, the 12mm bolts, are 75 Newton meters, and the bracket for the wiring harness and the battery cable, the positive battery cable, is 15 Newton meters. I imagine these, considering they're 8 mil, are both the same, about 15 Newton meters as well. Cleaned up the cables with the roll-lock sanding disc. So we're ready to put the ground cable back on and try this starter out. Okay, let's see if this thing starts. Beautiful thing. Let's finish putting the air induction system back together. So there it is, back together and running again. Just going to check the fluid levels and maybe do a network code clear just to make sure I didn't generate any codes. I might have generated a mass airflow sensor code by having the induction system off when I started it. But that's it. Another one fixed. Thanks for watching. This is why I dislike Volkswagen sometimes. So now we got a traction control light on and power steering assist light on. I've cleared the codes, they keep coming back. Let's see what code they're setting. So it shows we have a code in the steering assist and the ABS. So let's close this. Let's select individual controller. Steering assist. Fault codes. No or incorrect basic setting. All I did was have the battery disconnected. Done, go back, let's check the ABS. Close controller, go back. ABS brakes. Fault codes. Total tire pressure warning. Steering angle sensor, no or incorrect basic setting. Oh boy. Okay, gotta do some research. So as I figured, if the battery is disconnected, the electromechanical power steering warning light is on. It will lose the basic setting for the steering angle sensor. That's the 00778 code. So we got to figure out how to do this steering angle sensor relearn. I think you just turn the steering wheel back and forth. But I'll find out in a minute. Start the vehicle, turn the steering wheel, one turn to the right, one turn to the left, drive a short distance in a straight line on a level surface, stop with the wheels pointing straight, leave the vehicle on running and do not move the steering wheel. Select address word 44 steering assist. Enter a value of 40168. Seriously? Wow. So I had to take the vehicle on a road test, so I printed these instructions. I followed them to the letter, and I still got the steering assist problem. I got power steering, and we have an active code 02546, steering limit stop not learned. I did that. Let's try one more time. So I've tried this twice now, and I've taken for a short road test like the instructions suggest, and it still hasn't worked, so I'm going to do a little bit more research. So one instruction say to turn it to the left and hold it for 5 seconds, then turn it to the right and hold it for 5 seconds. This one says turn the steering wheel all the way clockwise, which is to the right, and hold for 5 seconds. So I'm going to shut it off and restart it and try that. So one says turn it left, the other one says turn it right, this one says hold it for 5 seconds, this one said had to hold the steering wheel for 30 seconds per side and wait for audible beep. So I've tried this multiple ways. I've held it for over 30 seconds against the stops in both directions. Although it says basic setting performed, yes, the warning light is still on. Let's clear DTCs and go back. Let's read fault codes. No or incorrect basic setting. Close controller. Go back. So honestly, I've been fighting with this thing now for like 2 hours. I did clear the fault code for the TPMS. This is a passive system, and you have to use this button to reset the TPMS wheel speed sensor frequencies, and then drive it for about 5 kilometers before it learns the wheel speed sensors. And then that TPMS light is off now. And of course, check the tire pressures prior to doing that, and they were all good. But I can't get this steering angle sensor limit learned. I've got this 02546 code. I've tried multiple procedures. I'm going to try it one more time. Done, go back. Security access. 40168. Do it. Basic setting. 060. Oh, that's 69. Hard to do this with one hand. Basic setting. 06. Go. No, see, I lost security access. Now I'm gonna get set up. Well, I can't frickin' believe it. I decided to try the Snap-on Verus instead of VCDS. I went into module 44, the steering assist, security, entered 40168, which is the magic number you need to gain access to security. Basic settings, memory block 60, pressed on, drove forward about 10 meters I should say, turning slightly left and then slightly right, and then ending with the steering wheel centered. Then I turned all the way to the all the way to the left and held it, and I heard the beep beep from the instrument cluster. Then I turned all the way to the right and held it, and I heard beep beep from the instrument cluster. Turned it back to center, and all the magic lights have gone out. Now, I don't know why it wouldn't work before. I can't understand why. I would have figured VCDS would have worked. I tried half a dozen manual ways. It's been, honestly, I've been screwing with this thing. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon now. It took me less time to change the damn starter. So I'm going to gain access to security again. I'm going to try this one more time because this is just bothering me. Edit. The magic handshake is 40168. Okay. Granted. Go into basic settings 4. Continue. Edit. 60. Okay. Now, as soon as I press on here, I expect the ABS light and stuff to come on. There they are. So now you drive forward, turn the wheel slowly to the left, 10 degrees or so to the right. Stop with the steering completely straight. And then turn all the way to the left. Then all the way to the right. Then back to center. And you notice the steering gets a little easier. So why didn't that work with VCDS? Was I doing it wrong?